Hello, good evening, and good day, everybody, and welcome back to the Ask Abhijit show. Today we are doing episode 130. Is it 230? It's episode 230, right? So today is going to be a video chat live stream. I'm going to open up the links for you to chat with me right here on the screen in video format. Let me put that link right away on the live chat. So here you have it. It's there now, and let me put it on the top. Here we have it. Okay, the video chat link is live. You can join and you can ask me your questions. Let's put some rules on the for the video chat. So please keep your questions short and only one question per person. That's it, so that everybody, as many people as possible, can get the chance to ask questions. Before that, let's see what who all is there on the live chat. I can see Young Sonic, Rigzin Dorje, Abhishek, Crazy Brain, hello, Abhimanyu Sharma, 142, Yadnesh Potdar, Gaurav, Mr. 88ers, Paparino Mansa, Badass Ravi Kumar, Lobzang Shitsitsang, Tejas B, uh, Honey, Aryan Sonavane, Priyanka Javalia, Grimzobad, Avneet Singh Khurana, Geopolitical Dubey, hello. Viraj Deshmukh, Aditya Singh, Dhruv Sen, Young Sonik, Chhatresh Kashyap, Akshit, Suhas Tibile, Lakshman, Crick Lover, McLevin, hello, Honey, Remya Dilip, graphic designer, Priyanka again, Utsav Khatri, Sayan Ghosh, Sri Harsha, and so many other people. So, yes, I have opened up the live chat for everybody, and it can take 15 people at a time, so people will have to be a little bit patient. So let's get going and let's take some questions. Let's see who all is there. I can see a lot of people. Let us go with our friend Rajorshi. Hello, sir, how are you doing?
Hello, sir. Good evening. Sir,
Good
my name
evening,
is
good evening.
Rajesh. Yeah. Sir, my question is regarding the Korean industry. So, recently we have seen a rise in popularity of Korean web series, movies, due to which the Korean skincare industry, cosmetics, food, fashion has seen a good rise in the Indian market. So, taking this as an example, my question is this kind of a rise organic, or is this manufactured through perhaps a very clever marketing strategy? Because the Korean brands are making a good profit out of it, I assume.
Could you mention some brands as an example?
Like for the foods, we have that Bulldog and all those noodle brands I've seen. I don't
Okay,
follow
okay,
the Korean industry much, but my friends they are
okay.
ordering chopsticks and buying clothes from them and something. Yeah. Those rice water serums and all these things.
Mhm. Yeah, good question. So the Korean brands are pretty popular across the world, not just in India. When it comes to Korean music, we don't understand the Korean language, but it's very popular, especially among certain age demographic in India. And even Korean web series are very popular on Netflix and wherever else. So, is it organic? Is it manufactured? Uh, Look, Korea is a highly developed country. It's a first world country, so they have high standards. Uh, they do have a significantly sophisticated movie making industry and series making and all of that, film industry. And when it comes to their products like noodles and whatnot, I mean, I'm sure they're pretty high quality. So the quality is there. You to understand that first of all, the quality is there. Now, when it comes to marketing, the Koreans, how would they market themselves? I mean, they are being marketed by the Americans essentially. See, Korea, as we know, is a very strong ally, let's say, of the United States. The Americans have more than 100 military bases on Korean soil. So, Korea is, you could say, a protectorate or a vassal of the US. And in exchange and as a reward for being so good to the US, they will get these perks. So these are the perks that you get by being a vassal of a very powerful nation. If you toe the line and you do everything they want you to do, you will get a lot of promotion. Your people, your industries will do well, whatever is allowed. Your people will get a very good lifestyle and access to the whole world, and so on. So I think the quality is definitely there. But why are so many Korean web series and etc being promoted on Netflix? Some of them are definitely really good. Was that Squid Game, right? It's very, very famous. So there is that. But I'm sure there are many of those that are not probably that good, but they're still being promoted in very large numbers on Netflix and wherever else. uh, K-pop, nobody understands the Korean language, but it's still so popular. So obviously, there's a push from somewhere that's coming into behind this. So it's a combination of both things. It helps to be on the good side of the US. It helps to be really close to the US, and then you get all these perks. So that's the deal, and that's why Korean brands are very popular across the world. All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Raj. Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Same here.
Bye. Okay, let's take a question from our friend Geopolitical Dube. Hello, sir. We have
Hello,
taken lots of
sir.
your questions. Yeah, good
Hello,
to see
sir.
you finally. Hello, hello.
Thank you, sir. Sir, my question is, sir, I want to know about the persecution of Hindus in Bhutan.
Okay.
How it all started?
Okay, the persecution of Hindus in Bhutan. So I am not extremely familiar with this topic. I am aware of some kind of alleged ethnic cleansing that is said to have happened in the past. I'm not sure. I've not looked into the details, but apparently there were a large number of Nepalese origin Hindus or other northern Indian origin Hindus. A large number of those in Bhutan, and maybe in the 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s, somewhere around that time, they were let's say deported or expelled out of Bhutan. I'm not sure if there was any violence or not, but yeah, that's what I have heard vaguely. I am not aware of the details. Uh, but we should remember that Bhutan is a friendly country, and we want Bhutan to remain friendly with us. And we obviously have a very ancient cultural and civilizational relations with Bhutan. And Bhutan is under extreme pressure to from the Chinese to, you could say, become a Chinese vassal or protectorate, and it is not good if that happens. Not for us and not for Bhutan either. So that's beside the point. Beside the point of when it comes to the question that you're asking, but I am not aware of the specific details of exactly what has happened. But I've heard these. I've heard people speak about this. I've not really investigated and read about this. So that's what I can tell you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, and very nice to see you finally. Thank you. Okay, we'll take questions. Let's see. Anandu Nair is waiting. So, hello, Anandu, sir. How are you doing?
Hello, sir. So happy to be here. Sir, I'm from Kerala.
Nice to meet you, sir. Happy to have you here.
Yeah. Sir, my question is very simple, sir. The first war of independence happened in 1857. So 50 years before that, in Kerala, there was a king called Palchi Raja. His revolt happened in 1788 something. And also there is a Dalava from Panagor. His name is Velidambi Dalava. His revolt also happened in something 1800s. But why this is not called the first war of independence? Why only a particular period, 1857, that war happened on the part of northern side, UP, Bihar, Jhansi, etc. It's known as the first war of independence. And also, sir, does that at the particular time, why it is contained in those areas only? Why it is not extended to anywhere else? Why the history is always Delhi centric? That's the simplest question I can have.
Yeah, you make a good point here. So, see, the history is written by the victors, and when it comes to Indian history, it was written by a very specific group of people, people who had a very specific agenda as to how to portray India's history. So, for the longest time, until very recently, what happened in 1857 was called the Great Indian Mutiny or Great Indian Revolt, not the first war of independence. Okay, so even that event, which was spread across very large parts of India, was portrayed as a mutiny or a revolt, which sounds like a small thing. A mutiny is typically something that happens on board a ship when the sailors revolt against the captain. That's a mutiny. So that's a small number of people. But what happened in 1857 was much larger than that. But our historians, our own historians, have portrayed it as some small uprising or a revolt or a mutiny. And when it comes to what you're pointing out, there are many such events that have happened before that, where people in various parts of India, even in, like you're mentioning, in Kerala, in other parts of southern India, they took up arms against the British, and we know that they did not succeed in the long run, but they did take up arms against the British and fight the British, not with non-violence and ahimsa, but actually fighting them and trying to evict them from our territory. But there are many instances like this, but our historians have disregarded them and tried to sweep these facts under the carpet. So it is now that all these things are slowly coming out in the public domain, because thanks to a large part to social media. So people in various parts of India are doing the research,
Yeah.
and they're coming up with this information, they're putting it out in the public domain. So I think over time we need to revisit Indian history a priori, and we need to compile all these facts together. And there were many wars of independence, and 1857 was by no means the first one. So I'm glad that you've pointed this out, and you
Sure.
are absolutely right. All
Oh,
right, Anandu, thank you so
yeah.
much for your
Thank you so
question.
much, sir.
Very nice to see you. Nice to meet you. Okay, let us see who else we have. I will take Matrode Nanju. Hello, sir. How are you doing?
Hello, sir. Sir, thank you so much for picking me. Really, I've been following you. Sir, so one of my questions is how, I completely understand your point of the casteism was not there. It's been, what do you say, glorified. Sir, but if you look at people like Basavana, like in our region, like Karnataka region, the
Uh-huh.
Lingayat region, sir, so the people talk about he was a guy who was reforming us. So, according to you, how much exactly was this this casteism? How much exactly was it? I know it's glorified, but can you please tell me how much exactly it was?
Sure, sure. The true facts are unfortunately shrouded in mystery. Okay, you are mentioning Basavanna, who is said to be a great reformer. I am not aware of the story of Shri Basavanna ji, so I cannot comment about that. But the main issue that you're asking about is this issue of casteism. Did we have casteism, and to what extent did we have casteism?
Yeah,
And it is
exactly. That's
true.
it, sir.
Yeah, exactly. And it's true that if you go to the 19th century, the 20th century, before 1947, even after that, there looks like there has been casteism. Even if you go to rural areas today, there is this us and them sort of thing, discrimination and so on, right? So when did this actually emerge? uh, you have to understand that the past 1000 or so years, Indian society has been under foreign occupation. Okay, and when a society is under foreign occupation, it is being persecuted and brutalized. It doesn't function the way it has organically evolved to function. It functions in a very different way, and all kinds of defects and problems enter the society. They become part of the society, and if this continues for centuries, it becomes part of your culture, so to say. But it was never originally part of your culture. So the question we should be asking ourselves is this: that in the year 500 AD, okay, 500 AD, what was the situation like in India? In northern India, southern India, east, west India, did we have casteism? We did not have casteism. We had the Varna Jati system. See, even if you go to places like, let's say, the UK, okay, in the UK, you have these surnames like Fletcher, Thatcher, Arrowsmith, Smith, and so on. A Fletcher is a person who who installs feathers on arrows. That's a hereditary occupation. Thatcher means somebody who puts thatching of the roofs of houses. That's a hereditary occupation. So even in England, and if you go to any other society, you will have the same thing. You will have these hereditary occupations that are passed down through in families and communities. So that was the same thing as the Indian Varna Jati system. Okay, and there is nothing wrong with that. Any well functioning society organizes itself, and there is division of labor. And whenever a certain family or community becomes a specialist, it starts specializing in certain skills, then it will try and ensure that these skills are passed on in the same community or same clan or family. That is not casteism. It is just the way the society was organized organically, naturally, over centuries and thousands of years. Now, if you go back, let's say 2,500 years before today, okay, we're talking about the Mauryan era. So there was this Greek ambassador who came to India. His name was Megasthenes, and he was the ambassador at the court of our emperor Chandragupta Maurya. Uh, and this was in Patliputra, and he wrote an account of Indian society from a very tactical perspective, very militaristic perspective. What kind of nation is this? What are the resources it has? What are the geographical boundaries like? What is the kind of society they have, and so on. So he writes His account is called Indica. It is lost, but there are many other accounts that refer to it. That's why some of the information has survived. So he writes, Megasthenes, that Indian society is divided into seven classes. Seven classes, not four. We think of the Jati Varna system, but in 2,500 years before today, it was organized in seven classes. So you had merchants, you had warriors, you had traders, you had uh, priests, obviously Brahmins, and so on. So it was seven divisions that he mentioned. I don't remember them all. So you have to understand that society organically and naturally evolves over centuries and thousands of years. But what's happened in the past 1,000 years is not natural evolution. Society was under tremendous constraints in the past 1,000 years, and lots of defects did enter society. But we have to understand, look, when you have a company, I give this example many times. Let's take the example of the company called Apple. So Apple was founded by Steve Jobs and Wozniak, right? Whatever his first name was. And until for a certain time, it was under the control of Steve Jobs, for more or less, and it did very well. And then Steve Jobs was expelled from the company, and then the company essentially went to the dogs. Okay, it was doing very badly. It was on the verge of bankruptcy, and then Steve Jobs comes back and he takes the company again and revives it. So when the company was performing very badly, it almost went bankrupt. Who was at fault? Was it the employees or was it the leadership? It's always the leadership, right, that you will blame for a
Yeah.
company going to the dogs. So similarly, when India and Indian society got so many defects that entered into it in the past 1,000 years, who was ruling India? You have to ask that question. Our society was not designed in this manner. So yes, we have issues. Any society has issues. Today we have issues that are the consequence of the past 1,000 years of foreign occupation and brutalization. India is a society that suffers from amnesia and PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. But because we have also amnesia, because our historians don't write the truth, so we don't know how
Yeah.
all these problems happened. So that's the point I would like to make, that we don't know exactly how much whether there was casteism or not. As far as we know, there wasn't that. And whatever divisions of society existed, they evolved organically like they do in every other society. But our historians, that
Hmm.
they make us feel that there is something inherently wrong with our society and civilization, and that
Yeah.
we are a very backward in all that civilization, which is absolutely wrong. We are probably the best civilization that ever existed.
Yes, sir.
So that's what I'd like to say to you in response to your question. A very good question, sir. Thank you so
Yes, sir.
much.
Yes, sir. Sir, just one short,
Thank you.
just a mini question, sir. Sir, as I'm an engineering
Sir,
student, I'm
sir,
really
excuse me,
curious
sir.
about.
No follow-up
Sir,
question, because there are lots of people waiting in the line, hundreds of people who want to the
okay,
live chat.
okay,
So
sir.
I'll only take one
Yeah,
question per
sure, sir.
person. But you asked a very good
Okay, sir.
question, so
Thank you,
thank you
sir.
so much. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, sir. Yeah.
Okay, let us take a question from Mr. Chetan Kumar. Hello, sir. Are you there, sir? Can't hear you.
Sorry, I was on mute. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Yes, sorry. So I actually wanted to understand why the West doesn't, like Western people, their leaders, or even like just the intelligentsia of the West don't understand Russia as a country. Like I am someone who lives in the Nordics. I travel like quite frequently to Russia because of this family ties. And a lot of Western people, my friends who are like Finnish or Swedish, they think of Russia as some kind of white supremacist, racist country. But I have never experienced at least white supremacy from Russia. And I actually travel a lot by road because I like driving my car to different countries. It is one of my like hobbies, you can say. And Russia is the only border crossing where I don't feel singled out for being Indian or being brown. But I have felt it, like even I went to Ukraine where they let all the Western European passport holders pass through, like it was couple of, like before the war, and then you were
Mhm.
singled out to for further investigation. But Russia is the only country where also the French or the British passport holders were made to stand with me for equal number of questions than I was. But somehow these Western people, especially like young people, they think of Russia as some white supremacist country, and I
Yeah.
cannot just reconcile why this is.
Yes, yes, it's a very good question that you asked, and a very interesting observations that you made. So this is called the power of propaganda. Okay, uh, the West portrays Russia as a nation that is a propagandist nation, right? Uh, but the fact is that the Western propaganda is unmatched. There is nothing that can come close to the power of Western propaganda. They own all the media outlets, they own the entertainment industry, they own everybody, and the same narrative is put forth every time about Russia. The West understands Russia very well. Okay, they understand Russia very well, but they want to portray a certain image of Russia because Russia is a challenger to Western supremacy and hegemony. Russia is, well, Russia, when I was a kid, I thought of Russia as a European nation. Okay, but today you will see Russia being clubbed with the East. So Russia is now looked upon as an Eastern nation, even though Vladimir Putin has had blonde hair and blue eyes. But they'll say his eyes are slightly small, so he's an Asiatic or something, that sort of thing. Um, so when it comes to Russia, they definitely, as far as even I know, I don't see any racism there. They are a very multi-ethnic society. The dominant group is obviously the Slavic people, but there are all these other layers of society which are all intermingled. The Tatars are there. Tatars are Central Asian people, Turkic people. Then you have the Chuvash. You have so many ethnic groups that are not white, classical white, or even European, and they all coexist harmoniously in Russian society. So Russia is the last nation I would portray as racist, but or white supremacist, because many of them are not white, of course, right? But yeah, this is the power of Western propaganda, and they seek to demonize Russia as much as possible because Russia is the bad guy. Russia is the guy that invaded Ukraine without any provocation, apparently. So if you want to go all out against a country, you have to portray them, you have to demonize them as much as possible, and that's why this happens. But I completely agree with you. When it comes to Russia, there's no racism or white supremacy. They are, and especially towards Indians, they're very friendly. So yeah, you're absolutely right. All right.
Thank you. Yes, thank
Thank
you.
you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you for the question. Nice meeting you. Okay. If you want to be on the screen, I'm gonna have to see your faces. Otherwise, I cannot take you. So okay, let's take a question from Mr. Mancheda. Hello.
Hello,
Hello.
am I
Can't hear you.
audible?
Yes, you're audible now. Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Hello, great fan, sir. Nice to meet you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. What's your question, sir?
Sir, I had a question about the nuclear reforms which our Honorable Finance Minister proposed today to aim for 100 gigawatt capacity up to 2035 and installing 4 light capacity reactors this year. So, how feasible do you think that 100 gigawatt target is, and even is 100 gigawatt enough from a nuclear source, especially with our thorium reserves and our extensive energy needs as we are a growing country? And does even India have the technological and industrial capacity to, have those kind of large capacity nuclear reactors, and even the 4 nuclear reactors they are planning to install this year?
Hmm. Great question. I haven't seen that portion of the budget. I actually haven't seen the budget, so I would not be able to comment on what has been announced today. But let's talk about, that's a very good point that you raise about nuclear capacity, 100 gigawatts or whatever. So I don't know if 100 gigawatts would be enough, but let's talk about percentages. See, if you look at a nation like France, approximately 60 or 70% of their electricity generation is nuclear in origin. And nuclear power is an extremely, if you do it right, it's extremely safe, it's extremely stable, and it can be a game changer. It has essentially zero carbon footprint. So even if we talk about green energy, nuclear is a great option. And India, when it comes to us, we have an issue when it comes to procuring uranium. Uranium we have to import from other countries. But when it comes to thorium, we have the world's largest reserves, like you mentioned, of thorium, the monazite sands in various parts of India. So we have about, I don't know, about at least a third of the entire world's thorium reserves. So I'm glad that this was announced today, and I'm glad that the government of India is serious about going forward with with the nuclear program. Uh, what's that noise?
I think we
Okay,
are 20.
Yeah, so let me continue. I was hearing some noise. Okay. So I'm glad the Indian government is serious about this. Now, do we have the technological capability to do this? We absolutely have it. We have this three-stage nuclear program. We are entering the second stage, just barely entering the second stage of the nuclear program. I think if the funding is provided and the right number of scientists and the right scientists and engineers and technicians are put on this mission, then we definitely can achieve whatever we want to achieve. And when it comes to the thorium program, I believe India has the world's most advanced thorium research program. So I don't think we are short on capability or skill or ability. The only thing we are short on, possibly, is political will. And if the political will is there now, then there's no question about us achieving whatever objectives we have. I would say we should try and emulate what the French have done. They have a very high quality nuclear power program, very safe reactors, and that's the benchmark that should inspire us. So I think it's definitely very possible for us to achieve these targets, as long as the funding is provided and the scientists and engineers are given a free hand to do what they're needed, what they're required to do. So yes, I'm pretty optimistic about this. All right. Thank you, sir. Great question. Thank you. Nice meeting you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, let's take a question from Bhupinder Nayak. Hello, sir. Can't hear you. Please unmute yourself. Sorry. I cannot hear you, sir. Okay, we'll go to somebody else. He can come back when he gets his thing right. Let's go to Mr. RT. Hello. Can't hear you. You're muted. Okay,
Hello.
it's not working. Hello.
Is it working?
Yes, I can hear you now. Please go ahead, sir. Ask a question. What's your name, sir? Where are you from?
Yes, basically I'm from Pune. My name is Rohan, sir.
Nice to meet you, sir. Please ask a question.
Yes, thank you, sir. Actually, I do have a question on the aircrafts that the thing that we are doing nowadays, like as you say, hyperpower like America. Those guys are also using just F-18 for the navies and F-22 and F-15 for the air force, I guess. So why
Yep.
there is more diversification on our Indian side, that we are using MiGs also, we are using Rafales also, we are using Jaguars, Mirages. Why this diversification? If someone like me who does not have background of defense and all those things, I can pick these things. So why don't our senior people, I guess, from the defense are not able to pick this? Is there any?
Yep. Yeah. Very good question. So we have kind of like a zoo of various kinds of animals in our air force. We have the Jaguars, we have the MiG-21s, uh, we had the Marut in the past, we have the Sukhoi 30 MKIs, we have the Rafales, and whatever else. We have like a menagerie of various kinds of aircraft, and if you have so many aircraft, then it's a headache to maintain them all. So I think, look, we know how things were in the past. Okay, it is alleged that there were lots of defense deals in which allegedly government and officials, etc., would allegedly get kickbacks and all that. That's the story we have all heard. Uh, so that can explain why we did not focus on developing indigenous aircraft, even though we had the technology like the Marut. We killed the program, and we kept on buying piecemeal, a few here, few there, from various countries. So that explains it. So, and there is this element of short termism in India. We don't look at things from a 30-year, 50-year perspective. We want to think about the next 5 years, because that's the inherent nature of electoral politics. You are elected for 5 years, and you will want to do whatever you can in whichever way possible in those 5 years only, because once again, after 5 years, you have to go and ask for votes. So what did I do in this 5 years? So if you look at jet engine programs, if you look at fighter jet programs, these things that take 10, 15, 20 years to mature. And if you say that I started this program but nothing has come out thus far tangible, then the common people may not understand it, because our education system has ensured that people don't understand these more complex and nuanced things, and that's why we are in this situation. So what needs to happen is that we need to invest in our own jet engine program, and we need to invest in our own fighter jet program. And the thing is, if we are not able to develop a jet engine, then in a short period of time, or let's say in the next 5-10 years, then we should acquire this technology by buying it from somebody. And it doesn't matter how much it costs, and it doesn't have to be the best technology in the world. It has to be decent technology. So, like you mentioned, the Americans have the bulk of their air force is F-16s and F-15s, the F-14s also, Tomcats and whatnot, and only a few of the aircraft that they have are the F-22s and the F-35s. The majority of the air force is those older aircraft that go back to the 1970s, and those are good enough to do most of the work. So we should initially have the philosophy of, let's learn to walk before we can run, and let's learn to walk before we can fly. So we should get good enough technology, and we should then have large numbers of aircraft, because we have this shortfall of the number of squadrons. The number that we need is 36 or something, and we have, I don't know, 20 something squadrons. So we have a significant shortfall of the number of aircraft the Air Force needs. So yeah, these are the issues. We need to think long term, and we don't. I get the feeling sometimes that the military of the Indian military wants the best of the possible things in the world. I have the specifications which surpass the specifications of most American aircraft, and that's what I want. Let's not think that way. Let's have decent aircraft initially, in large numbers of those, and then iteratively make it better and better. That's the philosophy that you would need to have, ideally. So I'm sure that hopefully things will go in that direction going forward. But yeah, thus far it's been like that. So I hope that answers your question. Right?
Sure, sure. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nice to meet you, sir. Okay, let us go to Mr. Aryan Agarwal. Hello.
Hello, sir. Can you hear me? Good
I
evening,
can
sir.
hear you. Yes. Good evening.
Sir, I've been a huge fan of yours, and I
Thank you.
wanted to say you're amazing. I just
Thank you.
gave my GATE exam today. GATE exam. So I
Okay.
was going to ask some questions about the mastering field, like masters of technology in
Yeah.
India.
Please
So
ask one question. Please ask one question.
yeah, just one question.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
why is the like the quality of people who come from masters so low, right? So, and the programs are not even good. The programs are very bad, and I don't think many people even want to do masters if they usually have a job in BTech. I wanted to join DRDO. That's why I gave GATE. I wanted to do something from artificial
Yeah.
intelligence to improve something there. That's why. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So first of all the best for your results whenever they come. Yeah. Uh, so why is the quality of the students that pass out of master's degree programs so bad? And you kind of answered your question by saying that the quality of the programs is terrible, right? Our education system, unfortunately, we have the most brilliant people on the planet in this country, in India, and the situation is such that the first of all, the education system is terrible. So if you turn out to be successful in life, you succeed despite the education system, not because of the education system. And typically you'll find that people who get great, very high marks and all, many of them don't do well in life. And typically people who did not do very well academically, they end up excelling in life, and so on. um, so first of all, the quality of the education system is terrible. The quality of the education system, first of all, it depends on the syllabus. Secondly, it depends on the teachers, and third, it depends on the institutions. And all three are subpar, unfortunately. The syllabus, if you look at technical subjects, it's sometimes 20 years behind where we are today technologically. When it comes to the teachers, they are mired in the 20th century mindset of rote repetition and memorization. And you essentially study to pass exams, not to actually gain skills. So these are the issues that we are facing. And because of that, the output, the people who pass out of these master's degree programs, most of them don't have the skills. It's not their fault. They are victims. They are not the problem. They are victimized by the education system, and this is why things like this end up happening. So we need educational reforms. That's what we need. And then what happens is that after you pass out of the education system, what happens is that you don't have the opportunities. You don't have the opportunities. Like, if you we have sufficient avenues for highly qualified, highly talented people to get jobs or get employment. There also is a problem. So these are all the problems that we are facing, and that needs long term reforms in India. And as far as I know, the long term reforms haven't really started. The what is it called? The new education policy has been implemented, but I don't see really it actually addressing the core issues that we are facing. So that's the challenge we face in India today, and that's why most really talented people, they leave the country as soon as possible. And how can we blame them? So yeah, that's the situation right now, but one can be optimistic that going forward, hopefully soon enough, degrees will not be mandatory for getting jobs. Hopefully, as the economy grows, we will have more job opportunities. We will need more entrepreneurs, more people of all kinds of skills. And hopefully, see, if I am running a business, I will not care what your degree is. I will just look at the kind of skills you have. And even if you are just 10th pass, as long as you have the skills, then I'll hire you. So hopefully more people adopt this approach towards hiring, and then the education system, you can just bypass it, hopefully. So yeah, that could be the solution for us going forward in the absence of other reforms. Anyway, great question and very nice meeting you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay, let's take a question from Atul. Hello, sir.
Sir, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes.
I'm Adul from Kerala. I'm a dentist. Sir, I want to ask you a question. Sir, do you think the government, our current Indian government, need more appreciation for the infrastructure development? Because in our state, considering, for example, in our state, Kerala, we didn't even have a proper two-lane road for the past 75 years. Only after like 6 years before they started having six-lane road, that is National Highway 66 from across all the districts of Kerala. Before that, we don't even had a proper road in our state. So, do you think they
Mhm.
need much more appreciation for development of our country?
Uh, I could not get everything you're saying, but you're talking about infrastructure development and what the government is doing. Uh, Obviously, infrastructure is critical for a nation, for a country. And India has had this very poor infrastructure for a very long time. Uh, and the current government, Mr. Modi's government, has had this very massive infrastructure push. It's initially you have to do just very basic infrastructure like constructing roads, highways, the railway lines, more airports, and all that. So that's been happening. When it comes to various states, a lot of the infrastructure development it comes under the state government's purview. So when it comes to interstate highways and all, interstate railway lines and all that, the central government can definitely do that. But when it comes to infrastructure development within a state, from one city to another city or one town to another town, I think a lot of that comes under the state government's purview. And that's where some states, unfortunately, we see them still lagging behind the other states. I'm not sure of the situation in Kerala, but I'm glad to hear that now things are changing. That's what you're saying, I hope. And we would like to see that happen more. We would like to see every highway being at least a six lane highway. We suppose definitely can do that. And we definitely need more airports, more railway lines, more ports, all of that. So yeah, that's the direction in which the country needs to go forward. Absolutely. All right. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir. Good. Thank you for the question. Okay, those of you who I will need to see your faces in order to take you on the live chat. Otherwise, I cannot. So I'll take the next person I'll take will be Mr. Karthik Bhatt. Hello, sir. Good evening.
Hi, sir. Good evening, and it's so good to meet you finally. So I have a question
Likewise.
on how Russians, yeah, I have a question on how Russians perceive their internal politics, because as I understand, Russia is probably insulated from the Western propaganda, and the population is not divided into this left and right. So how do they perceive their internal politics, and how insulated are they from all these divisions? Something I want to understand. Are they hyper-nationalistic? How is it over there?
Okay, I could not get half the question, but you're talking about Russian politics and how do Russians perceive their own politics because they're insulated from the Western propaganda and all that, right? That's what you're saying?
Yes. Yes, that's
Yeah.
right.
So, Okay, so Russians, if you see, look, the Western propaganda says that Putin is a monster, he's a dictator, he's a bad guy, right? And he needs to go. And ideally, the West would like regime change in Russia. But as far as I can see, Mr. Putin is extremely popular in Russia, and the Russian. Ever since the special military operation started in Ukraine in February 22, and Russia has been under siege from the West, all kinds of sanctions and all, the Russian and the Russian economy has still been able to more or less withstand all of this entire onslaught. You can see that the Russian population is becoming more patriotic, more nationalistic, and they're all rallying behind their leader, Mr. Putin. So that is something that's definitely very visible, and that must be something that the West doesn't want to happen, but that's happening. uh, when it comes to the internal politics of Russia, I'm not sure. It's kind of not very clear. Uh, one question that many people would probably have is that after Mr. Putin, who comes next? Right? He has been the leader of Russia for at least for about a quarter century now. With a small detour in between when Mr. Medvedev became president. But he essentially has, even then, was behind the scenes the most powerful leader, politician in Russia. So he is in his 70s now, Mr. Putin, and who comes after him is the question. And right now, I don't have clarity about who comes after him, because there are various leaders in various political leaders in Russia, but one cannot see the next Putin emerging from there. Maybe there is somebody, maybe there are people with those capabilities, but right now we are not able to see. So eventually, the transition of power, whenever it happens, I'm sure Mr. Putin will take care of it. But yeah, so internal politics, I don't think there's a lot of internal politics in Russia. The kind of internal politics we have in India, the Indian political system is extremely vibrant, extremely chaotic. Elections every 3 weeks here and there. That's not the case in Russia. So it's a very different political system. But overall, I see all the people of Russia, they are all extremely nationalistic, and most of them are rallying behind Mr. Putin. That's the way I see it. All right. All right, sir. Thank you so much for your question. Nice having you here. Thank you. Okay, let us go with Mr. Pushkar. Hello, sir. Good evening. Can't hear you. Can't hear you.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
It's been a pleasure meeting you. So, my question is, despite having so much importance in world history, India has like oldest civilization, oldest language, exceptional trade 5,000 years ago. Why it's not that popular in the mainstream media as we compare to Egypt or China? So,
Mhm.
it's my short question.
Okay. Very good question. So why is India not popular, right? In the global mainstream media, you will see that the Western media, Western entertainment industry, Western historians, Western writers, etc., they will sing the praises of ancient Greek civilization, ancient Egyptian civilization, Mesopotamian civilization, even Chinese civilization. But they will say very bad things about India. India is terrible, blah, 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 all that stuff, right? And the question is why? So we have to understand the difference between Indian civilization and, for example, Greek or Egyptian or Mesopotamian or Sumerian or Chinese civilization or even Japanese civilization. What's the difference? The difference is that Egyptian civilization is dead, it's been destroyed, it's defeated. Sumerian civilization, long gone. Assyrian civilization, Babylonian, Mesopotamian civilization, long gone. Greek civilization doesn't exist anymore. Japanese civilization, it's under US control and occupation. Chinese civilization, well, the Chinese Communist Party isn't exactly a great guardian of Chinese civilization. They tried their best to destroy Chinese civilization. And the Chinese Communist Party, if you see their officials, if you see their leaders, they wear Western dresses and they act like Western people. But yeah, these days there is this talk about Chinese history and all that these days. So all these cultures that the West extols are either destroyed, defeated, or hardly alive. That's the difference. When it comes to us, Despite 1,000 years of operation, foreign occupation, and everything else, we are still alive. We are still kicking. We are still walking on our 2 feet, and we are actually even showing signs of growing and rising again. So that's what they don't like. They don't like it. The Western civilization is an Abrahamic civilization. They don't like polytheists. They don't like anything that has something to do with polytheism. That's why South Korea is almost entirely now Christianized, and whoever is not Christian is, most of them are now atheists. And similar stuff is happening, unfortunately, in Japan as well. We are the only ancient polytheistic culture that survives, and we are the oldest of the lot. And that's why they don't like it, and that's why they try their best to denigrate us and portray us in a very poor light. So if that's the view that the West has of India and the mainstream media has of India, I think you should take it as a compliment, that they hate us because we have refused to die and we are still alive and we are still rising once again after 1,000 years. So it's actually a good sign, and that's why they don't like us. All right, sir?
Yes,
So
sir.
very
Thank
good
you.
question. Yeah, good question. Thank you very much. Nice
Yeah.
meeting you.
Thank
Okay, let's go to Mr. Pranay Kumar. Hello, sir.
Hello,
Hello.
sir.
Yeah,
Sir, good to meet you, sir.
good to meet you.
Sir, I wanted to ask you the question that why is the West aiding and abetting the rise of Islam in Europe so much? The Islamic people are very united and hell bent on destroying Christians, and they want to destroy America. So why is USA helping them and helping Islam grow so much?
Uh, Interesting question. So first of all, we have to understand that Islam is one of the three Abrahamic religions. And the
Hmm.
people who believe in the Abrahamic religions, they're called people of the book. So Islam isn't
Hmm.
that different from Christianity or Judaism. Of course, there are all these controversies and lots of things, but overall, the three religions are very similar. They may look different cosmetically and from that perspective, but the core fundamental tenets are very similar, and they also share many of the same prophets and all that. So that's the first thing we have to understand. It's a very similar religion. Islam is not a polytheistic religion like us. That will
Hmm.
never be allowed in the West. They will never tolerate that. So there is that. Okay. Now some things don't make sense when it comes to all those grooming gangs, etc., in the UK that have been victimizing English girls. Why was that allowed to happen for decades when everybody knew about this? We don't know. So some questions only the Western leaders can answer. Why they are allowing
Hmm.
so much foreign immigration into their countries, and essentially the numbers are growing, have grown a lot in the past few decades. And the local people, the indigenous people, now feel very strongly threatened by the influx of foreigners. So I don't think that issue has anything to do with religion. I may be wrong, or maybe it does, I'm not sure. But why have they chosen? Yeah, it is indeed true that they have not brought in millions of Hindus or Sikhs into the countries. They have brought in mainly millions of people from the West Asian countries and North and various African countries into Europe. So why they are doing it? Are they trying to stamp out Christianity and replace it with Islam? I am not sure. It looks like they want to do that, but what the motivations could be, even I am not really sure what the motivations could be. Why would you do that? Why would you have your own country, your own people, your own culture replaced with another bunch of ethnic groups and another religion? uh, it beats me, it baffles me, and I don't have the
Hmm.
straightforward answer to that question. It's something that's really baffling. It's like the West is digging its own grave. It's like that. So I don't know, we'll see.
Yes, sir. It is
Yeah,
very confusing to me because
yeah, yeah.
Islam treats Christianity and America like its enemy, and US is helping their enemy.
Well, that's the maybe that's the yeah. So it's definitely very baffling, and I myself don't have
Hmm.
the answer to that. I am myself
Hmm.
really baffled. Okay, all right.
Hmm.
Anyway, thank you so
Okay.
much for your question, and nice
Okay.
meeting you,
Thank you,
sir.
sir.
Nice meeting you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hmm.
Okay, let us go to Mr. Prajwal. Hello, sir. Hello.
Hi, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can finally hear you. Yes, sir.
Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, sir. I can.
Hello? Yeah, yes, sir. I just have a question, sir. It's like, why? I mean, we know that we are into IT industry, and most of the people from India get into USA as a H-1B visa candidate, and but the Chinese have got into DeepSeek. How is that, sir? How is that working? But we are not.
Okay, how are the Chinese able to develop DeepSeek, and why has no Indian company or entity developed DeepSeek? DeepSeek. Well, I don't think that has anything to do with the H-1B issue at all. Okay, first of all, yeah, lots of Indians go to the US on H-1B visas, and lots of Indians are in the US technological industry in Silicon Valley. Lots of Indians are CEOs of very major, very powerful, very large companies in the US, and so on. And even Chinese CEOs aren't there, but lots of Chinese employees are definitely present in the US, and many of them are on H-1B visas. So the H-1B visa issue isn't probably relevant to the development of foundational AI models. So the Americans have a bunch of foundational AI models like Chat GPT and no, not Perplexity. It's a wrapper. Claude is there, and there are others as well. Now the Chinese have sprung a surprise by coming up with DeepSeek R1, and other models are also coming out. So why is India not able to develop this? Is the question that essentially you are asking. So what it takes to develop a foundational AI model is you need a lot. See, the way to do it technically is pretty well understood. What you need is a very large amount of computing power. You need a whole bunch of high end GPUs, and you need the right people. So if you essentially take 20 to 50 well qualified engineers, and you give them the computing power that they need, then they will be then they can definitely come up with a foundational AI model in, let's say, 6 months. It's very possible. But the thing that's holding India back right now is that the computing power is very expensive. CPUs won't cut it. You need GPUs, and you need really high end and very powerful GPUs. So if you need, let's say, 10,000 GPUs, NVIDIA GPUs, so if you need 10,000 NVIDIA GPUs, high-end GPUs, it will cost you, I don't know, a few $1 million, maybe 10, 20, whatever $1 million, maybe more than that. And then you need to have that funding, and then you need to have the right people. So that convergence is not happening in India. So see, there are lots of Indian engineers, IT specialists, or whatever you would want to call them, who have the skills to develop on their own this sort of system. What they're lacking is the GPUs, and these GPUs are very expensive. So here's what needs to happen actually. Okay, I think today Mr. Ashwini Vaishnav, yesterday, whenever he announced that India will have its own foundational model in the next 6 to 9 months or something like that, he said next 1 year or so. So what needs to happen is that the government needs to identify teams of people, or call upon people to contribute to the effort, and put together teams of people and give them as much computing power they need, and then use the open source DeepSeek R1 that thing, or what, or you can develop your own foundational model and build upon that. Another thing we could do is, why not have a competition excuse me, among the top 10 IITs. You have IITs all across the country. Let's take the top 10 IITs and have every IIT form a team of, let's say, 20 to 50 students who will work on the project, and you give them as much computing power they need, and give them 1 year to come up with the foundational AI model. And let's have a competition between the top 10 IITs, and let's see which performs the best. And then we can have this competition done every year, and we can iteratively build upon and improve upon the foundational AI models. The solutions are simple. All you need is a bunch of talented people in one place for maximum 6 months, and you give them all the resources they need, and then India will come up with 20, 50 foundational AI models. So that's definitely possible if you make the resources available. See, today computing power is extremely it's extremely expensive. In the past, RAM was extremely expensive. In the 1960s, 1 GB of RAM was unheard of. Today, 1 GB of RAM costs nothing. So it's very possible that in 20, 30 years, the kind of computing power that today costs $10 million will cost tens of dollars. And then anybody will be able to build these foundational AI models. Anybody with the right skills will be able to build it. But right now, it's very expensive, and that is the one thing that's holding India back. So the government needs to get involved. Let the IITs get involved. Let Indian entrepreneurs, the ones who have the access to the money and the resources, why don't they also put together teams and do that? So that's happening with. That's beginning to happen now in India. Zoho is now going in that direction, and so on. So I think we need to not get too defeatist about this. Okay, it's a matter of a few months in which we can have our own foundational AI models. I think it's going to start happening sooner rather than later. So I think we need to be optimistic, and I am pretty sure that by the time this year is out, we will have at least a few Indian foundational AI models. So I'm optimistic about this. All right, sir. But great question that you asked.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice meeting you. Bye. Okay, let's go to Mr. Anuj. Hello, sir. Hello.
Hello, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Yes, you're audible. It's a pleasure to meet you, sir. I'm such a big fan of yours. I've been following you for like 3 years now. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
So I'm from Himachal Pradesh, sir. So my question is regarding photons. So like, what gives photons that speed? Like we say that light is the speed limit of the universe. It's a universal speed limit. So what is that inherent thing in the photons that propels them at that speed?
Okay, photons. See, it's like this. The way the universe is, any object or any particle that has zero mass. I'm gonna have to mute you, sir. Okay. Yeah. So the way the universe is, every particle that has zero mass automatically travels at the speed of light. That is something that is built into the source code of the universe, let's say. So people talk about the what is it, that the universe is a simulation, right? The simulation hypothesis. So see, we know that underlying everything in the universe, we have mathematics. Mathematics is the language of physics, and it is something that underlies. Mathematics is a representation of the regularities and patterns that underlie the universe. So if the universe is a simulation, then it was coded in the language of mathematics, and in the source code is inbuilt this thing that any particle that has zero mass will automatically travel at the speed of light. Nothing is propelling it or impelling it. Okay, it just travels at the speed of light. Now a photon, and different particles will have different energies. So photons come in various colors, what we perceive as colors. This is red, this is white, and so on. So the color of the photon is the way we perceive it. It is matched to its frequency or wavelength, and that's why we perceive colors. But it's just a property of the universe. So it's just an inbuilt property of the universe.
It means that right from the very beginning, since its creation, it had that speed inbuilt into it.
From the first instant that the universe was created, the photons and all the massless particles traveled at the speed of light. So that's just an inherent property of the universe. There is nothing that impels them. It's just the way it is. All right, sir. Thank you so much for your question.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Let us go to Tarush. Hello, sir.
Hello. Am I audible?
You are audible.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah. Namaste, sir. How are you?
Namaste. Good. Nice to meet you.
Hi. My question is, the education system doesn't teach us how to achieve our desires. In college, it's just that a system is there. You buy hard 2-3 hours before the exam and you answer and come. So we don't feel the need to learn over there. So if we have a constructive desire, for example, financial freedom or anything like making an AI system or anything, or making a rocket. So how do you learn how to achieve that? Like, what's the process? How do you start?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The education system doesn't teach us the very fundamentals of succeeding in life. how to manage finances, how to succeed in what you want to do, and all that. How do you learn that? You have to go beyond the education system. The information, the knowledge is available out there. It's available in the form of various books. It's available in the form of YouTube channels and videos, how to succeed in life and how to achieve your things. Some of the things that are involved in being a high achiever are things like discipline, things like time management, things about self management and all that. So these are skills that can be learned, and these skills are available in books and on various YouTube channels. So you have to study that. You have to find extra time out of your studies, beyond your studies, and invest some time out of your day or week in learning these things. Personal finance is extremely important. It's crucial to succeed and to succeed in life, and do well, to generate wealth and build wealth for yourself and your family and for the country eventually, obviously. So that is important. And yeah, how to be disciplined, how to create systems to manage your life, to manage your day, to manage your time, all that. So all these things are merely skills
What's the
that are
most
learnable
important
skills.
skill? What's the most important skill in all of this?
The most important skill in all of this, I would say, is self management, which is understanding yourself first of all. We are
Hmm.
all very unique individuals, but most of us don't even understand who we are, actually are. So you have to
Right.
understand who you are. You have to understand what your strengths and weaknesses are. You need to
And
understand what you are really meant to do in life. You have a certain set of qualities and characteristics that will ensure that you will be good at certain things. So you have to identify that, and then you have to work on that, and then how to set goals and how to manage yourself, manage your time, all that. So this is called self management. I think that's the most important skill, and that
okay.
obviously is not something you can learn over a weekend or something. It takes time. You have to invest like a couple of years in that, and over
Right.
time you learn, you start understanding who you are, and you learn these techniques and start applying them. So this is something everybody ideally should go through. The education system doesn't teach us that, but everybody needs to invest the time in learning these things. Much of this information is available for free on YouTube, or you can purchase reasonably inexpensive books and buy and
Would you
learn this stuff.
recommend a particular book for like how to think about all these things the way you told me, right?
Yeah,
Any one
yeah.
book or
I cannot.
two, three books?
I can't think of any such books right now. I've read so many
Okay.
books, and I've read self-help books also in the past, but
So we
can't
have to
think of
read
anything
many
right now.
things like hit and trial, try this, try that, a lot of different things.
What you should know, hit and miss is not good. What you should do is, if you want to buy a book, for example, let's say
Hmm.
book of time management or whatever it is, go to Amazon, look at that topic, and find the best books in that. The books with over 100 reviews, with at least 4-star reviews. So if you can, that way you can refine your search criteria, and hopefully you'll find the right books. So hit and miss will take a lot of time. You should be
Okay.
smarter in
Okay.
selecting the books, or whatever, and that's how you do it. All right.
I have a small suggestion, sir, for the.
Sir, no suggestions, no questions. Lots of people are
Okay.
waiting. You
Understood.
can put the
Understood.
suggestion in the comments. Okay, please do that. I'll look.
Fine.
I'll
Sure.
definitely look into it. Thank you so
Sure.
much.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let us go to Mr. Swastik. Hello, sir.
Hello, hello.
Sir,
Am
you
I
are muted.
audible?
Please. Yes, you're audible now.
Sir, first of all, thanks for doing whatever you're doing. आपके कारण
Thank you.
समझ में आया मुझे कि कैसे जियोपॉलिटिक्स हमें अफेक्ट करती है एंड एवरीथिंग एंड कैसे लाइक बांग्लादेश वाला जो आपने बनाया था वीडियो साल भर पहले एग्जैक्टली वही हुआ वहाँ पे एंड
जी जी।
मेरा क्वेश्चन जो है वो थोड़ा इंटरनल पॉलिटिक्स के रिलेटेड है जैसे कि रिजर्वेशन है ये बोला जाता है कि जो कास्ट के साथ पहले डिस्क्रिमिनेशन हुआ उसको हटाने के लिए किया जाता है एंड ऑल बट जब मैं देखता हूँ कि एक जनरल कास्ट वाला है वो फाइनेंशियली वीक बैकग्राउंड से आता है एंड वहीं पे अगर एक कोई वो बहुत अच्छे तरीके से एक बहुत अच्छे बैकग्राउंड फैमिली बैकग्राउंड से आता है जहाँ पे उसकी फैमिली बहुत अच्छे से करती है सो आई डोंट थिंक उसको कुछ भी नीड है कि वो लाइक एक उसको पुश मिले या कुछ भी एंड जो जहाँ पे जो मिडिल क्लास है या फिर नीचे उसको पुश मिलना चाहिए सो डोंट यू थिंक कि सिस्टम ऐसा होना चाहिए कि जो इकोनॉमिक बेस पे लोगों को रिजर्वेशन देना चाहिए बस एंड ये सब पूछना ही या बोलना ही बंद कर देना चाहिए कि ये ओबीसी है या एसटी है दैट वे वी कैन एलिमिनेट द कास्ट सिस्टम
जी बिल्कुल बिल्कुल. Very good question. So what you're asking is about the reservations system and all that, right? So ये system को बनाया गया है so that we can eliminate the so-called caste system and give everybody the same the same kind of opportunities and all that. लेकिन होता क्या है कि the reservation system is based on caste. It's based on caste. देखिए until the late 19th century there was no official caste in India. लेकिन फिर जो ब्रिटिश सरकार है उन्होंने सेंसस में कास्ट का वो डेटा कलेक्शन करना शुरू कर दिया. And after 1947 what's happened is that the government ensures that in all your important certificates and documents caste is mentioned. Birth certificate, school living certificate, school, all the major certificates, and that ensures that you are tied to a certain caste. And then when the reservation system started, Mandal Commission 1990s, whenever it was all done on the basis of caste, that so and so castes will be given reservations and other castes will not be given reservations. But what happens is that there are many castes or many people belonging to so-called backward caste or whatever caste who get reservations, but some of them, it's possible, are very financially well off, very rich, and they get benefits that could have gone to somebody else. So so I agree with what you're saying, that reservations, I don't think it's entirely a bad idea, but it should be done on the basis of your family's financial condition. If your family is below the poverty line or below a certain set of criteria, then you should be given reservations, not on the basis of caste. And reservation should not be something that goes on for hundreds of years. You should solve the problem you're trying to solve in the next 20-30 years maximum, and then end reservations. By the time, if everybody is reasonably well off, and there are no people hopefully below the poverty line, then you don't need to do this. The problem is that we have institutionalized caste. The politicians say that caste system is bad and all that, but they are institutionalizing caste by forcing us to have the so-called caste in all our documents. We need to destroy caste, annihilate caste. And the simplest way of doing it is to make sure that no document contains the word caste, no mention of caste, and give reservations if required only on the basis of financial status. That's the solution, simple solution. But the politicians will not let this happen because they benefit from these things, and they are keeping us divided as a society. That's the problem, one of the major problems we're facing in this country. And then we all see everybody as what caste. That's it. That's the problem.
Sir, so how can we start or maybe to change this thing, the mindset of people?
We can't. The government has to do this, take the step, and only then things will happen. Apart from
I
that,
don't
look,
think they will.
They will not. But see, I don't think there is any casteism to a very large extent in the country. Go to any restaurant. Do you care who has cooked your meal?
No. Not
You
at
go
all.
you go to the bus station, you go to the train station, go to the airport. Does anybody care what the caste is of the next person? No one cares. This is a non-issue. The politicians want this to be an issue so that they can divide the country by caste and then play caste bank, vote bank politics. That's the issue. Solution is very simple. We need better leadership. Strong leadership. All right. Thank you so much for the question.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me. Have a good night, sir.
Thank you. You too. Bye. Okay, let us go to Mr. Anmol Thapa. Good evening, sir.
Hi, sir. Pleasure to meet you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Nice to meet you.
Yes, sir. So my question is regarding China and India. We have been parallel civilizations for almost 5,000 years now. We being 5,500 years old and they being around 4,000 years old. So both of us has seen many world conquering civilizations like the Persians, the Arabs, the Turks, the British, the Portuguese. So where is it that we lagged in the modern era and the Chinese excelled? And how can we overcome the backwardness that we are currently in?
Okay. So first of all, I would say that we are not just 5,500 years old. We are the oldest civilization that is known to have existed. We don't know how old our civilization is. If your archaeologists will only dig up to a certain level, they will say, okay, so it's only 5,000, 6,000 years old. But you have to dig until you find so-called virgin earth, which is no more artifacts of human evidence. But they don't do it. But look, our civilization is at least 10,000 years old. If you look at the oldest Indus Valley site, that is Birana, it's almost 10,000 years old, and so on. So that's a different point. The question is, when it comes to Western empires, I would not call them civilizations. I would call them empires. The Roman Empire is an example. They conquered so much of the Western world, and the Chinese also did conquests to a certain extent. And all, where did we fall behind? Um, we also did conquer in the past, but we are not taught about this. For example, Lalitaditya Muktapida conquered much of Central Asia. Chandragupta II of the Gupta dynasty also conquered Bahlik and various parts of Central Asia. Kanishka the Great, one of our greatest emperors, conquered a territory all the way from the Aral Sea to the Caspian Sea to present-day Xinjiang and parts of Tibet in present-day China. So we've had all these conquests. We're not taught about this. Where did we go wrong in the past 1,000 years? We became probably too civilized. We thought that everybody will follow the rules that we follow in warfare and all that. And people don't do that. We were not practical enough, pragmatic enough, and we were not unified as a subcontinent. There have been times when the subcontinent was unified under a single emperor. Those were the times when India did really, really well, like the Mauryan era, like the Kushan era, the Gupta era. Even the Chola era was great for southern India and all that. So what you need is unification, political unification. You need a practical, pragmatic approach towards international relations. Don't be idealistic that everybody will behave the way we behave. And you need to prioritize economic and military might. That's what needs to happen. So those are the things that went wrong in the past 1,000 years. The most important thing is political unity under a single centralized government. Even today we don't have that. We have too much decentralization, too much federalism in India. So these are some of the things that went wrong, and those are the lessons of history we can learn. All right, sir.
So like I would like to say like the China opted for like an authoritarian regime. So is it like right to say that for a developing nation, democracy is not as good
It's
like
not good.
for a developed?
It's not good. You need at least 20-30 years of dictatorship or centralized government, very, very strong. Yeah, so I agree with you. Yep.
That's my question. That
All
was my
right.
question.
All right. Thank you so much. Nice meeting you, sir.
Alright.
Thank you. Let's go to Mr. Naman Chavda. Hello, sir. Hello.
Yeah, hi sir. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. You're audible.
Yeah, sir. Nice to meet you. And I
Nice to
really
meet you.
appreciate the knowledge that you give. So, sir,
Thank
my
you, sir.
question
Thank you.
is on one hand, the Trump administration talks about drill baby drill. They give out slogans like these and they back out of the Paris Agreement. And on the other hand, these guys are trying to get to Greenland. And they say that climate change is not real. But at the level of actions, they are trying to do something in which they are perhaps demonstrating that climate change will happen, uh, ice caps will melt, and they need Greenland so that they can make a trade route out of that. And so, my question regarding this is now these guys also have the social media in their hands, and with this, there is a great difficulty in separating political propaganda from scientific facts. They too get mixed into each other a lot, especially with climate change as a topic. So, with social media in their hands, how can one separate political propaganda and scientific facts so that they can get to the truth and build solutions for the real problem?
Yeah, good question. How do you separate fact from propaganda, especially when it comes to science? For that, it's very simple. You need scientific literacy, so you can tell for yourself whether this whatever is being claimed is correct or not. Right? You need scientific literacy for that. Basic scientific literacy, how to think from first principles and things like that. And you have to understand one thing very clearly. When somebody says trust the science, that person is most likely a fraud, because you don't do science by trusting what you're told. You do science by questioning everything.
It's
By
verifiable.
questioning everything. Yes, everything has to be interrogated. It has to be proven without any doubt. So if a new claim is made, you have to interrogate it. You cannot trust it because some great expert has made it. Many of these great experts are on the payroll of the government or some corporation or something. If you look at the history of the United States, in the 1950s and 1960s, medical doctors were promoting cigarettes. Okay, medical doctors, they would say that the so and so cigarette is the best in the world, and that's the best. That's the one I prefer to smoke, and all that. So these people, the pharmaceutical industry, the medical industry, has a long track record of being on the payroll of whoever will pay the money. And if some great famous accomplished doctor or medical expert will makes a certain claim. Another example is the US standard diet, or whatever they call it. Okay, there is this diet that is prescribed in the US, which for the longest time is prescribed an overload of carbohydrates, which is what makes people fat. Eating fat doesn't make you fat. Eating too much carbs makes you fat, and eating too much sugar makes you fat and gives you diabetes. But the American Medical Association has been promoting sugar for such a long time, for decades. So you cannot trust these people. You cannot trust these medical professionals, pharmaceutical industry. You have to question every claim they make. To the right way to do science is by questioning, not by trusting. When somebody says trust the science, that's a sure shot, almost sure shot example that this person has a certain agenda. So now, how to differentiate fact from propaganda? Look, you need to develop scientific literacy. I think, I know the education system is terrible and all that. We can keep on crying until the life is over. My point is that if the education system is problematic, it doesn't teach you science, then why don't you teach yourself science today? All the basics of science can be learned online if you want, for free. Nobody is going to charge you money for that. So I think it's incumbent, it's a responsibility of every citizen to learn certain skills and acquire basic scientific literacy on their own, so that they can make their own validation of various claims. That's what I would say. All right, sir. Thank you. Very good question you asked. Thank you so much. Okay, Mr. Nikit Dev. Hello, sir.
Sir, huge fan.
Thank you so
Hi,
much.
sir.
Thank you.
My question is, sir, how do you have like such a huge arsenal of knowledge? For example, we as a students, if we have to research on a particular topic or some other thing on our own, so like what do you suggest about that? Because I think you have knowledge in like every subject.
Not every subject, but yeah. So how do you do this, right? As a student, see, what happens when you're a student is that you have these often very horrible textbooks that you have to take. You have to study them, memorize them, and very often the textbooks are written, unless you're lucky, very often the textbooks are written by a writer who's not very good. And if it's a scientific subject, you need to understand the flow. I mean, if you have a derivation of a certain law of physics or equation, you have to be able to see how it was derived. And often they will say the derivation is left as an exercise for the reader, and that sort of thing. And sometimes things don't flow and all. So very often the textbooks are very boring. They are very difficult to read from and all. You end up feeling tortured and you don't learn anything. That's what happens. I also went through the same thing. What do you think? Of course, I went through that. So, how did I acquire whatever little knowledge I have? I was always super curious, and I used to treat library time as fun time. So, nothing was more interesting for me than spending a day at the library. And I would read whatever my curiosity took me towards. So, I would read about history, I would read about crystals, I would read about films, how special effects are made in Hollywood films. Lucasfilm, they had this thing called Industrial Light and Magic, a studio called in ILM. So I read about that. So I used to read about all kinds of stuff. I was inherently a very curious person, and that's how. And the thing is this: even if you're reading something that is potentially an interesting topic, it's possible that the textbook or the book you're reading may not be that interesting, and it may not give you all the value that you need. So when you're reading something, when you're studying something, you should have the philosophy that it's okay to forget. It's okay to forget. If I'm reading, let's say, 20 pages, it's okay to forget 18 pages. At least I'll remember what I found interesting. And that's how you build upon your knowledge. So that's always been my philosophy. That's how I do it. And obviously, there are tools and techniques for memorization, which are short-term tools and techniques. They will not help you in the long run. So that's always been my approach. And that's how I have learned whatever I've learned. All right, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so
very
much. Thank you so much. Nice to meet you. Thank you. Okay, let us go with Mr. Zishan Zaidi. Hello, sir.
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
So you said in the past that you think the United States is the most powerful country that's ever existed. So obviously you cannot achieve this without having great leaders throughout your history. So my question is, in each century, the 21st, the 20th, and 19th century, which U.S. president do you think was the best of that century, and why, considering accomplishment and legacy?
Okay, that's a great question. I haven't had this one before. Good. So let's start with the 19th century. I think the greatest American president of the 19th century was most likely Abraham Lincoln. And why is that? He fought to keep the country unified. I think the South seceded legally from the United States, okay, from the Union. It was not an illegal secession. It was according to the Constitution and the laws. But Abraham Lincoln said, nothing doing. I'm not going to let this happen. And he went to war to ensure that the Union survives intact and as a whole. So I think 19th century, Abraham Lincoln was the greatest. The 20th century, who was the greatest? Who was the guy at the end of the Second World War? It was Teddy Roosevelt, wasn't it? Franklin Roosevelt. I think he is the guy who was the greatest of the 20th century. And why is that? It's he who set up the global empire, the seeds and the roots of the global empire. It is he who ensured that the United States did not withdraw from Japan and other parts of the world that they had, you could say, created military bases. They stayed there, and then he expanded this, and this was carried forward by subsequent US presidents by signing all these so-called treaties, which are essentially all kinds of alliance treaties with nations like Japan, with South Korea, even Pakistan, which essentially vassalized all these nations and made them client states of the US. So that is something that tremendously contributed to American power in the 20th century. So I would say Franklin Roosevelt was the architect of that. 21st century, I haven't seen any great US president thus far. So I don't know. We'll see. Maybe Trump is the guy. We'll see about that.
All right. Thank you for answering, sir.
Thank you so much.
DC. Big fan.
Nice meeting you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye. Okay. Sushant Dev, sir. How are you, sir?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
I'm good. Nice to meet you.
Okay. So my question is, a few days ago, I went online out of curiosity. I searched which of the defense system, either India or Israel, have a better defense system, because technically Israel has the Iron Dome, right? Which is similar to what I've heard the description of anti-ballistic missile. So I just want to ask which defense system, either India's or Israel's defense system, is technologically more advanced or better? Because there are a lot of defense systems that India have, but Israel don't. But online, when I checked, I got mixed responses. They say, how can you compare Israel? Israel is like really advanced, and they have invested in technology for like a lot longer than India. So which defense system in the battlefield is in battlefield is stronger or more technologically advanced?
Okay, so you talk about missile defense systems. So when we're talking about missile defense systems, we have to understand there are various kinds of missiles. There are cruise missiles, there are ballistic missiles, there are missiles that have maneuverable capabilities after re-entry as a ballistic missile, and so on and so forth. Various kinds of missiles exist in the world.
Yes.
And if you have a missile defense system, ideally you want your missile defense system to be able to take care of all of those. But the world is very complicated. The trajectories are very different when it comes to ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, short-range ballistic missiles, medium-range ballistic missiles, long-range ICBMs, and so on. It's very complicated. And then you have maneuverable re-entry vehicles, MARVs, and then you have MIRVs, very complex. Now, we are talking about two nations, Israel and India. Israel has, what you rightly mentioned, is the Iron Dome system. We have to understand that it's a very good system, but even that is not it's not fail-proof. We saw lots of Iranian missiles impacting on Israeli targets, right? So one thing, first of all, you have to understand that if you want to defeat a missile defense system, it's just a matter of pure mathematics. A missile defense system will have a certain number of missiles to take out your incoming missiles. Okay, and it can take out, let's say, X number of missiles per minute. All you have to do is fire X plus 1 number of missiles per minute, and you've defeated that missile system. And if they have, let's say, 2,000 missiles for defense, You fire more than 2,000, then there's nothing they can do. Okay. What you also have to consider is the amount, is the territory you're defending. Israel is a small, tiny nation. They're defending a very small territory. So they have that inherent advantage that it's only this much territory we have to defend, and everything else we don't care about. When it comes to India, we are a subcontinent. It's a gigantic territory. When it's the US, once again, it's a gigantic territory. Now, what kind of missile defense systems does India have? First of all, we have purchased the S-400 from Russia, which is said to be probably one of the best missile defense systems of its kind in the world. It can take out cruise missiles. It can take out those artillery rockets, kind of rockets. It can also potentially take out certain kinds of ballistic missiles. That's what they
Agni-5,
say.
I think, is the strongest and fastest, if I'm not wrong.
Which one?
Agni-5, I think, is the strongest and fastest India has.
That is
Agni-5.
not a defensive missile. That's an offensive missile, sir. That's a different thing. The
Okay,
Agni
okay.
5 is an offensive missile. It's not a defensive. We're talking about missile defense system, right?
Yes.
So the S-400 is what we have. I don't know how many we have, and we cannot put them all over the place, all over the country. So we will only deploy them where at sensitive locations where you really want to defend the place, like New Delhi, for example, and so on. We are also developing our own two-stage missile defense system. The PAD Prithvi Advanced Demonstrator Missile is there, and you have an exo-atmospheric missile defense, exo-atmospheric missile, and so one missile takes out a target outside the atmosphere in space, and another one is a more short reaction missile which takes out a missile which is within the atmosphere and not far from the target. So we are in the process of developing our own indigenous system. Maybe in 10-20 years we'll have something which is superior to the S-400 500 system perhaps, but right now it's a work in progress. So if you want to compare Israel and India, I think Israel, because of the advantage they have of very small territory, I think they overall have a more effective missile defense system. But India, we have the constraint of, or rather the thing that we have very gigantic territory, so it's very difficult to defend every square kilometer of it. So that is a disadvantage we have. But obviously the enemy doesn't want to land missiles in forests and jungles and mountains. They want to hit cities, right? So that's where we will obviously focus on our defense on. So right now it's a work in progress. I think in 10-20 years we'll have our own indigenous systems that are like world class. That's where we stand right now. All right, sir?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice meeting you. Thank you so much. Okay. Let us see who all we have. Let us go to Mr. Bhuma Surya Pavan. Hello.
Hello, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. You're audible.
So my question is, in your early videos, you have so much hope for India's future. After watching your recent videos, I'm having defeatist mindset. Is it over for our country and our civilization? So,
is it over for India? Is it over for Bharat? Is it over for our civilization? It's not. Absolutely not. See, times change. The conditions in the world, the circumstances in the world were different in 1990, and they were different in 2000. They're different in 2010. They were different in 2019, and then we knew that in 2020 something very drastic happened, the pandemic, and the circumstances changed again. And today the circumstances have changed once again. We have a very different kind of world leader, Mr. Donald Trump, and he's going to approach the world in a certain set of ways. And so it's not over for India. It is. I think it's very probable that he will try and turn India into an American vassal. That will be the best possible outcome for the US and for Donald Trump. It will be the greatest achievement probably that he can have. So that's what the Americans will try. And it is also probable that we may have to play along with that to a certain extent. But does it mean it's over for India? Obviously, it's not over for India. We have seen such terrible times in the past 1,000 years, and we are still here, right? We're still here. We survived the past 1,000 or so years of foreign occupation. Right now, it's possible that we may have to become a quasi-vassal for some time of the US, but that's not foreign occupation. So I think we have to think long term. Maybe the next 4 years will be interesting. Maybe the next 10 years may be interesting. But we are a civilization that has endured thousands of years, and we will certainly endure the next several thousand years. It's true that certain things that should have happened in the past 10, 12 years have not entirely happened. Many reforms could have happened that haven't quite happened that way. Education system, how many new ships did we build in the past 10 years? I'm not very satisfied with the number of naval ships we built. Submarines we are lacking, aircraft we are lacking. So there are things we are lacking at, but there are things that are very positive as well. So I would say that we should not be defeatist. We should be optimistic. India is a nation with a tremendous amount of potential. We have one of the best leaders we've ever had in the past 100 years, who's the prime minister right now. So we should be optimistic. Yeah, nations go through tough times sometimes, but it is not something that should make you all defeatist and all pessimistic. I think the future remains bright for us. All right, sir?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, let us go to Mr. Varun Prajapati. How are you, sir?
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, sir, you are.
Okay. First of all, thank you, sir. And my question is about the system of governance. India and China, we got independent at roughly the same time, and we adopted this multi-party, multicolor democratic system. And I learned from you that we historically had the Chakravarti Samrat type of democracy. So we are habituated to this kind of democracy. But so when I see often at China, I feel like the one-party system had done them great wonders. I mean, in 70 years, the Chinese are competing with the US. They are winning hundreds of gold medals in Olympics. They have the best of military, such a
Yes.
big economy. So the overall question is: the current democratic system in India efficient enough, or we should?
No, it is not efficient enough. It is the wrong system for India. We chose the wrong system in 1947 or 1950 or whenever it is. 1947, we became a dominion state. In 1950 or whenever it was, we became a republic. We chose the wrong system. I am not saying we should have a dictatorship and we should have an emperor and all that. It's okay to have a democracy, but why not the presidential system? The larger your nation is, the more centralized the overall power structure has to be. The smaller your nation is, the more decentralized you can make it. So we are a gigantic nation, a subcontinent sized nation, and we chose a system that emerged and evolved on a small island in the Atlantic called England. Okay, this democratic system, the Westminster democracy, the parliamentary system, it evolved and emerged and evolved in England. And that is a very small little nation, and it is eminently unsuitable for a gigantic subcontinent sized nation like India. We should have had the presidential system. But now this system, the Westminster system, is so deeply entrenched, and every single politician who is in power anywhere has benefited from the system, so they will not let it go. So I don't know what the solution is, but right now we are burdened with an extremely inefficient system that pulls us back and weighs us down. If we had had something like the Chinese system, then we would have been ahead of China. That is a guarantee. And like you rightly mentioned, historically we did not have this sort of stupid system. We historically had emperors, and you would have democracy locally at the low levels, but at the central level you would have no democracy. The emperor was the king for life, and that's how it was. And generally we had good emperors. So yeah, the system. So the answer to your question is that we have not chosen the right system. We have chosen a very poor system, which is not suitable for our civilization. All right.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Nice to meet you. Let us go to Mr. Tanmay Deshpande. Hello.
It's not suitable for our civilization. Right?
Hello, sir. Can you hear me? I can't hear
Let
you.
us go to Tanmay Deshpande. Hello.
Okay, we'll take you later. Let us go to Mr. Skand. Hello, sir.
Hello. Nice to meet you, sir. Can you
Nice
hear
to
me?
meet you as well. I can hear you.
So my question is, what is really happening in the US? Recently, in the past 3-4 days, there have been like 2 airplane crashes. So what is really happening? One of them was a military helicopter.
I don't know what's happening. That's a good question. What on earth is happening in the United States? You have this uh, passenger aircraft that's trying to land in Washington D.C. over the Potomac River, and it's slammed into by a military Black Hawk helicopter that's flying way above where it should be flying. The ceiling in that area for Black Hawk helicopters, military helicopters, is 200 feet, and this thing was flying much above that. Even Trump tweeted that the helicopter was flying above the altitude where it was supposed to fly, and this helicopter just goes straight into the aircraft, and the aircraft plummets into the Potomac River, and I think nobody survived. So there was a couple of days ago, and then one more plane crash, I think in Philadelphia, wherever it was.
Yep,
uh,
Philadelphia.
yeah, Learjet or something that crashed somewhere at 500 kilometers per hour or something. I don't know what's happening. It's very strange. I mean, I would not venture to speculate as to what is happening and what could be behind this. Is it all uh, just accidents, or is it something more sinister? I don't know. I don't have the information to about this way or that way, but it is definitely suspicious and strange that you have so many accidents in such a short period of time in the US, which is the technologically most advanced nation in the world. So it is definitely strange, and it is definitely something that everybody is remarking upon. So yeah, I agree with you. It's strange. All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Yeah. Let's go to Mr. Rohit Devgaonkar. Hello, sir.
Hello, sir. It's an honor to meet you.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, recently China unveiled their sixth generation fighter aircrafts, but I'm skeptical about their abilities. Are they really that good? Or I think the F-22 Raptor for me is still the best out there. I think it is part of Chinese propaganda.
Yeah, good question. You know what? Every nation indulges in propaganda, and in every nation that aspires to be a great power or wants to be at the topmost level will indulge in every kind of possible propaganda. Uh, you make an interesting point about the F-22 Raptor. I would say it is superior to the F-35. I agree with you. The F-22 Raptor is probably the best aircraft that's ever been built thus far. Yeah. Now, when it comes to the Chinese sixth generation fighter plane, it's interesting. It has three engines, and it has that typical stealthy set of characteristics and all. And they claim it's a sixth generation fighter plane and so on. So I would say, first of all, congratulations, China. You are doing great. But I'm not sure how great this aircraft is. I'm sure it has some characteristics that would classify it as a sixth generation fighter plane, and which is definitely something that other nations haven't done thus far. So that definitely one has to congratulate them for that achievement. But I'm not sure how great it is. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of propaganda. There's going to be a bunch of tall claims. At the end of the day, how good an aircraft is can only be determined when you see it in combat. So until that happens, it's just talk, So I agree with you. I am on the same side as you. I am skeptical about the claims about how great the aircraft is. I think it remains to be seen how good it is, but it's definitely a significant technological leap that they have achieved. Right?
Yes. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much for your question. Let's go to Mr. Ayush. Hello, sir.
Hello, Abhijit, sir. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing fine. And my question is, recently NASA conducted a study and they found on asteroid there was a presence of complex molecular things. And we all know that for life to evolve in evolution, the complex molecule played a very important part. So my question is, given this study, what do you give the probability to the Panspermia hypothesis? I think you are familiar with the hypothesis. And what do you think is the most optimal solution for the Fermi paradox?
Okay, you asked me two questions. Let's talk about the what is panspermia, first of all, for the benefit of the audience. Panspermia is this theory or hypothesis that the building blocks of life are scattered across the universe. And according to this hypothesis, maybe about 4.5 or 3 or whatever 4 billion years ago, the building blocks of life appeared on Earth through asteroid or comet impacts, which means that these asteroids or comets, where they contain the building blocks of life, and that's how life was seeded on Earth. Now when we talk about the building block of life in the panspermia hypothesis, we're talking about DNA, actually DNA, because if you look at the rate at which DNA mutates and doubles in size and complexity, uh, you know at what a rough rate it happens. And if you go back in time to the simplest possible DNA, that takes you back about 10 billion years. Yeah, but this planet is about 4.4 billion years old, so it doesn't make sense. How can DNA evolve so fast? So yeah, that is definitely a big mystery, and that's why this hypothesis has been put forth, the panspermia hypothesis, that maybe DNA and the building blocks of life came from outer space. Okay, that is panspermia. Now you what you're mentioning, let's talk about that. So an asteroid sample or something was done, some study was done of an asteroid, and they
Yeah.
detected the presence of complex amino acids on the asteroid. Amino acids are the building blocks of proteins, and proteins are the building blocks of life. I mean, much of the human body and all animal bodies are made of proteins, fats, etc. That's what most organisms have. So without protein there's no life, and without amino acids there's no protein. And our genome tells protein, I mean, it tells you how proteins, how to code and all that. So we have discovered complex amino acids, the basic building blocks of proteins and life on an asteroid. What does it mean? So it's not very surprising. We have had many more um, you know people have analyzed meteorite samples and all, on which they have discovered amino acids and complex organic molecules. So it's not the first time this has happened, but in this case what you're talking about, I think they've discovered all the major amino acids, which makes it which gives more strength and more credence to this hypothesis of panspermia. So yeah, it doesn't prove that life came from outside Earth. It just tells you that these complex molecules seem to be quite widespread and prevalent in our asteroid belt, and maybe beyond our solar system also it's possible. So it's an interesting development, but it doesn't answer any question definitively. It doesn't. Okay. The question about the
Yeah,
origin
yeah,
of life
that's
and all.
what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, sir. Thank you very much for the question. Very interesting question.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you. Nice meeting you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, let us go to Mr. Aman George. Mr. Aman George, hello.
Hello, sir. It's a great pleasure to meet you, sir. So my
Nice
question
to
is
meet you.
that how did Germany able to achieve such a significant technological advancement during World War II, despite having the setback in World War One?
Yeah, good question. How did Germany develop such advanced technology, which helped it so much militarily during World War II, despite having a very massive setback in World War One, in which they were defeated and humiliated? Right. So that's a great question. Very great question. It takes you back to the fundamentals of how you develop technology from scratch. So Germany, okay, you go back in history. Before 1871, there was no Germany. There was no kingdom called Germany. There was no empire called Germany. Germany was created as was unified, and a new nation was created in 1871 by the Iron Chancellor Otto von Bismarck. And this new nation, which was entirely new, it was eager to prove that it belonged on the big stage, on the big league in Europe. So they really pushed. They really, what do you say? They invested in science and technology and research and development. They set up great institutes in which they found the best talent and promoted the talent like anything. So you had great professors like Ludwig von Boltzmann, like Max Planck, etc., who were the heads of various institutes, and the best possible talent was recruited and promoted, and they emphasized research and development of all kinds of technologies. For example, one of the technologies that gave birth to the field of quantum mechanics was, uh, the light bulb had been invented, but scientists did not and engineers did not understand what was the correlation between the temperature and intensity of light and the color of light. And that was one of the big mysteries that could potentially make a nation the best the nation that made the best light bulbs. So it was this question that gave birth to the to the field of quantum mechanics. So Germany was at the forefront of all this. It prioritized merit, it funded all the right research, and that's how, in a very short time, in just like a few decades, Germany became an industrial superpower. It became the major industrial power in Europe and at the forefront of all the cutting edge technologies of its time. Now, it did suffer a massive defeat at the end of World War One, and it lost territory and it was humiliated in the Treaty of Versailles and all that. But its industrial base kind of did not get destroyed in World War One, and that's how they were able to build the technologies needed for Adolf Hitler to start World War Two. And they developed some of the most cutting edge technologies ever. Germany was the nation that developed the first ballistic missile, the first cruise missile, the first jet engine, and so much more. It's because they prioritized merit and they funded the right research and they promoted the best talent. That's why they were able to do this. It's a very interesting question, right?
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Let us go to whom shall we take? Let's go to Mr. Aditya Gulavani. Hello.
Good evening, sir. Honor to meet you.
Nice to meet you, sir. Thank you.
Uh, so my question relates to the decline of the USSR in 1991. So, sir, as you've also mentioned multiple times, that the USSR was US's primary competitor as a superpower in the 20th century. What were some of the mistakes that the USSR made that eventually culminated in its decline in 1991, and what do you think that India can learn from this?
Very good question. Very good question. What are the things that contributed to the decline of the USSR and its dissolution in 1990, 91, wherever it is? So when a nation, when an empire falls, it doesn't fall overnight. The problems, they start accumulating decades before the actual eventual demise happens. So there are many things that went wrong. It was overall a decline of standards, slow, gradual decline of standards in the USSR. After Joseph Stalin died, the decline started essentially. Okay, Joseph Stalin was, well, whatever his faults and shortcomings are, okay, there were many, but he was a great visionary leader of the USSR. He is the guy who set up the industrial base of the USSR and made this nation in a short period of time after 1945 a superpower. Okay, he is the guy responsible for that, Joseph Stalin. But after he died, the slow decline started, and the industrial base did not stick to the highest technological standards. For example, one of the biggest inventions of the 20th century was the computer. Okay, and once you have a computer, you want to make it more and more powerful, and that gives rise to supercomputers. So when it came to the race for supercomputing, the Soviets started falling behind the US, and by the time you come to the 1980s, they were like 10-15 years behind the US in terms of supercomputing technology. And then when it comes to the space race, initially the Soviets were far ahead of the US. They achieved all the firsts in the space race. But after the Americans reached the moon before the Soviets, for some reasons, the space exploration and the space technologies, it took a back foot. The Soviets were the first to send a probe to the surface of Venus, from which it was able to take photographs and record sound. That is a technological feat that I don't think anyone can do even today. But they were able to do it in the 1960s, 70s, whenever it was. But over time, maybe it was a lack of political will, lack of political whatever. But over time, I think the Soviet leadership started looking inwards and the standards declined. And so it was a gradual thing. Overall, the nation, and the other thing that led to the decline and eventual dissolution of the USSR is that the Americans controlled the seas. They had created this gigantic network of military bases all across the world, starting with from the end of the Second World War, and they controlled all the seas, all the choke points, the Suez Canal, the Gulf, the Malacca Strait, the various choke points in the Sea of Japan, and so on. and they were able to, the Americans through their propaganda were able to successfully project this image of being the superior power, of being the more open society, and the Soviets started looking inwards. So because the Americans started controlling all the trade routes, all the sea routes, all the choke points, that definitely constrained the USSR and its potential, its ability to grow economically and trade with the rest of the world. So all of these factors, I'm sure there are more as well. These all these factors contributed overall cumulatively to the decline of the USSR. Another example of the decline of the USSR technologically is what happened in Chernobyl, 1986. I mean, it was just it should not have happened. So all these things contributed to the eventual dissolution of the USSR. But I would put it down to declining standards. Slowly erosion of standards, which eventually became unsustainable. That's what happened. All right. So
Thank you so
Aditya ji,
much,
thank you
sir.
so much for your question. Thank you. Nice meeting you.
Thank you, sir.
Let us go to Mr. Shubhankar Kulkarni. Hello, sir.
Hi, sir. Am I audible?
You are audible. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm a history buff. I keep on reading about great emperors and rulers. So I have a question. So Ivan the Terrible, Catherine the Great, Peter the Great, Alexander I, Joseph Stalin, and Vladimir Putin. Who do you think is the greatest Russian leader of all time? Judging Putin on his current performance. And part two is, where do you see Russia going in the coming decade and in the coming century? Will it become more insignificant, or actually they would rise further? And thanks for having me. It's an honor to talk to you.
All right. Thank you. Nice to meet you as well. So, who is the greatest Russian leader of all time? Many choices, like you mentioned, many examples. Catherine the Great, by the way, she was German, but she married the Russian
Yeah.
Tsar and became the Empress of Russia. She's a great contender. Ivan the Terrible, obviously he was terrible and he did very crazy things, but he was also one of the greats. I think it boils down to maybe two, three people. Even Putin, I mean, the way he had the country recover from the disaster of the dissolution of the USSR and
Right.
what he has been able to achieve. But Russia isn't a great nation today. It's not a superpower again. It is a near superpower thanks to its nuclear arsenal. But yeah, it is not anywhere close to where the USSR was. But it's been a significant recovery under Mr. Putin, so that counts in his favor. Probably Catherine the Great may be the greatest Russian ruler of all time. Ironically, being of German ethnicity, probably she's the one. And when it comes to where Russia goes going forward, it all depends on the eventual transfer of power from Mr. Putin to his successor. If
Right.
that
There's
goes
no
right,
clear successor. There's no clear succession as of now. We don't know who might
we don't.
Who might be the next successor of Mr. Putin.
Yeah, we don't know as of now. We don't know who could be on his mind or whatever. But if the succession, see, he's in his 70s now. It's gonna be 10 years at most. After which he will have to pass on the baton to somebody else. So if he gets the succession right, and if his successor takes Russia even further towards greatness, then we'll probably remember Putin as Putin the Great, because he's the guy who started the turnaround. I think Russia, if they play their cards right, they could be one of the great powers of the century. They have all the resources they need: territorial resources, mineral resources, everything they need. They're an autarky. So I think if they play their cards right now, the whole world is stacked up against them. But they still are enduring right now. They're able to resist. They're able to still stand strong, and their economy is actually growing. So if they play the cards right, they could end up being one of the top 2 or 3 or 4 powers of the 21st century. Right?
Right. Thank you.
All right, it's a very interesting question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so let us go to Mr. Ayush Thakur. Hello, sir.
Namaste, sir. Am I audible?
Namaste. Yes, sir, you're audible.
Sir, so like my question is that I am a astronomy enthusiast, and I want to start as astrophotography. So like, how can I start astrophotography with a smartphone? Like some basic guides you can suggest.
Well, I'm really glad that you are interested in astronomy and astrophotography. I personally have never done it. As a kid, I always wanted to have a telescope, but it so happens that until today I've never owned a telescope. Okay, so there's that. When it comes to Astrophotography with a mobile phone, I'm not sure how you would do that. You would need a very, very high end mobile phone. And then you would need to be able to zoom, I don't know, minimum 20 times or something, 20x zoom. I would say maybe 100x zoom if you want to capture the craters on the moon, or to be able to resolve the rings of Saturn. You need a good resolving power on your instrument. What astrophotographers do is that they get themselves a decent telescope, ideally a powerful telescope, and then you use something like a DSLR or something that you attach to the telescope, and then that's how you do it. uh, I'm not sure how you would do it with a cell phone. I'm sure it's possible to a certain extent. I'm sure you can at least capture reasonably good images of the moon. I've never tried it. Maybe I'll try it after this live stream ends. I'll try it out maybe. But yeah, I'm not an expert in this, so I would not be able to give you very specific, actionable uh, advice. But I'm sure there's resources available online as to how to do it.
So
So
perhaps
yeah,
using the telescope and like the smartphone through that, like whenever
that is
we
definitely. Yeah, so you would need a telescope and in addition to a smartphone, and then you will need
yes,
something to have the two to
hold.
integrate the two together. Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
sir. Thanks a lot, sir.
All right. Thank you. Nice meeting you, sir. Thank you. Okay, let's go to Mr. Anmay Khane. Hello.
Hi, sir. Am I audible?
Your sound is very low.
Oh, is it? Okay, I'll just speak loudly. So, yeah, my
Yes, sir.
question is that so in India, you know that politicians they have like a sense of entitlement in general. They think that they are more than, or they are very great, and the same is true about even bureaucrats and government employees and police. So, what do you think can be done to end that the sense of entitlement?
Well, you would need a very powerful and strong leader who can get the bureaucrats in line. And see, one thing that really, really works in favor of the bureaucrats is that you can fire them no matter what they do, whether they indulge in corruption or do something very bad or whatever. You cannot fire them. You can at most suspend them. When you hear the news, it happens all the time that so and so bureaucrat was caught with so and so money in bribes and all that. That person is suspended. That person is not dismissed or terminated from employment. They're only suspended, which means that after a few months they come back. So they essentially have a job for life, and it's because of some clause of the Constitution of India or something like that. So, and if the government tries to revoke that clause, then all the bureaucrats will go on strike, and the country will no longer function. So that's the kind of chokehold they have. I'm not saying they're all bad, the bureaucrats. I'm sure there are some of them who are really good, but so that's a very problematic structural issue that dates back to the roots of the Indian civil services. We call it the IAS, right? Indian Administrative Services. But originally it was called the Indian Civil Service by the British. And the IAS is nothing but a continuation of the British Indian Civil Service. And they constructed it in such a way that it's ended up being what it is today. So you would need a very strong leader, a very, very powerful leader who can dismantle the system and reform it thoroughly from the bottom up and top down. And yeah, I mean, you would need a leader with probably dictatorial powers to make it happen, but right now that's not the case. And when it comes to politicians, it's once again the kind of system that we have, that technically they serve the nation and they serve the people, but in reality they actually rule over the nation. So that's just the way it is. That's why I was discussing earlier in today's live stream that we chose the wrong system for our country, and this system is weighing us down. It is slowing us down. If we could have reached, I mean, you know, India could have grown much faster and much better with a different kind of system. But that's just what we have. So we have to do whatever we can despite the system. All right. All right, sir. Thank you so much for your question. Thank you. Nice meeting you.
Right.
Okay, let's go to Mr. Siddharth. Hello.
Hello, sir. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes.
Yeah, so a big fan, firstly. Absolute
Thank you.
pleasure talking to you. My question is on the line of illegal immigration that's happening into Europe, right? So if you basically look at what's happening, it's military-aged men, as you say in your previous videos, military-aged men with very, with very aggressive mindset coming into Europe from only specific areas into Europe. So how does not one but not two countries but an entire continent fall prey to illegal immigration? How are they not able to like open their minds and think what's going behind the back? Because if you look at what's happening, out of everything, it's the US that is benefiting. Anything bad happens to Europe, it's the United States that benefits, right? If you look at who blew up the Nord Stream, obviously they won't tell it directly, but there's a clip of literally Biden telling before it blew up that we've got ways to blow it up, and then it suddenly blows up and they blame it on the Russians. So anything bad happens to Europe, it essentially goes back to America. So do you view illegal immigration as a way to generate friction between two ethnic groups, or what do you say on this?
So I'm not sure what they're trying to achieve by having millions of these people coming into Europe, but why is it happening, and why is none of the European nations able to do a thing against this? That's the real crux of the matter. You have to understand that when it comes to the European Union, there's no democracy there. And why do I say there's no democracy? Let me explain. See, and there's no sovereignty. Even more than democracy, there is no sovereignty when it comes to these nations that are part of the EU. And why do I say that none of these nations are genuinely sovereign? What are the characteristics of a sovereign nation? Firstly, you print and control your own currency. Secondly, you have complete control over your borders and who comes inside and who goes out. These are the two defining characteristics of a sovereign nation. And thirdly, you get to decide what happens inside your country and what rules and what laws are enforced. Three characteristics of a sovereign nation. In the EU, none of the EU member states has its own currency. They have to use the euro, which is a continuation of the Deutschmark. That's number one. Secondly, none of these nations has any control over their borders. The borders are open. Anybody from any part of the EU can move into your nation and there's nothing you can do about it. Number three, what was the third thing? Number three is laws. What laws are enforced in a nation? Well, it's the EU laws that are enforced in the nation. So all of this is being controlled from Brussels. So none of the EU nations is a sovereign nation. They are all non-sovereign nations. They have lost their sovereignty. So all you have to do to flood the entirety of the EU and all the nations within it with illegal immigrants is to make the decision from Brussels. And who controls Brussels? Well, the bigger power controls Brussels. It's the US. So you are right. That's how it is going. And that is why none of these nations has been successfully able to resist this tremendous influx of illegal immigrants. Now, why is this being done? Why is Europe being destroyed, deindustrialized? There could be many theories for that. One of the things I can think of is that whenever the Americans think of a strong Europe, they see those visions of the marching boots and the Hugo Boss uniforms, Nazi uniforms, and they want to ensure it never happens again. So the idea behind the Nazi regime was the idea of the superior race, the so-called white Aryan race. So if there is no more superior race left, they're all mixed up, then that can never happen again. So maybe that's the reason why. So you can see that Europe is being slowly neutralized, deindustrialized, and it's all happening in real time through illegal immigration and so many other means. And none of these nations are able to resist that because they are not sovereign anymore. That's why.
Yes. If you look at
All right.
what George Orwell quoted,
no follow-up questions, please. We have so many people waiting for it. All right. Thank you so much. Very good question. Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's go to Mr. Jatin. Hello.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, sir. You're audible. Hello.
Oh,
Mr. Jatin.
Sir, firstly, it's an honor to share this.
Thank you.
Hello.
Thank you. I can hear you, sir. Please ask your question.
Oh, firstly, sir, it's an honor to share.
Thank you, sir.
The screen. I have tons of questions. I don't know what to ask.
Well, you should be prepared.
Let's start with our neighbor.
You can ask me one question, sir. One question.
Yeah. So I want to ask about Nepal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, in 2008, there was a royal massacre in Nepal.
Yes.
The prince, I think Dipendra, I think it was
Dipendra,
his
yes. What's
name.
your question?
He killed his own, yeah, he killed his own royal family, and then he killed himself. And then a Scotland Yard police came in out of nowhere to investigate. So what actually happened that night, if you have any knowledge?
What happened is shrouded in mystery. The official narrative is that Prince Dipendra went crazy and he killed his own family and then he shot himself. That is the official narrative. Now, do we have the real facts? Has anybody actually gone and seen what happened? Nobody knows. But I, for one, don't buy this story that the prince went crazy and killed his own family. It's so convenient. If you want to wipe out the whole royal family, it's so convenient for this sort of thing to happen. At that time, the Maoists were fighting the government of Nepal, and they were trying to form, take over the country. And then conveniently, and the Nepalese government was the royal government of the royal family because it was a monarchy, right? So the royal family is wiped out. Mr. King Gyanendra comes to power, and then he's made to abdicate. So it's very convenient, and it very, very conveniently, ends the matter. So I find it very suspicious. I don't personally believe that this is what happened. Maybe they were all eliminated by somebody, but I suppose we will never know. So I can't really give you a definitive answer to your question. But thank you for your question, and nice meeting you, sir. Thank you. Let's go to Mr. Shreyas. Okay, we have already crossed 2 hours. Maybe I can take a couple of questions more. Let's go to Mr. Shreyas Shetty. Hello, sir.
Namaste, sir. Nice meeting
Namaste.
you.
Nice meeting you.
Sir, my question is, why does Bollywood shows ISI and Pakistan in good light in movies, famous movies such as Bajrangi Bhaijaan, Pathan, and Tiger 3, despite many atrocities they commit inside and near the border, which is very visible.
Yeah, interesting that Bollywood has this great love for Pakistan. I don't know what the reason is. Okay, you will you will see that many of these movies, they show Pakistan and India as brotherly countries, and it's only the politicians who are creating the divisions, but the people, they love each other. And they will show ISI agents as kind of good people and heroes and all that, when ISI is a terrorist organization. Essentially, they are behind the terrorism. They have been behind the terrorism in Punjab first and then Kashmir for decades, right? And you will even find that in previous about a decade or so ago, until it was ended, they would have Pakistani singers sing songs in Bollywood movies. So Bollywood has this history and this track record of this great love for Pakistan, despite Pakistan bleeding India for decades through terrorism, through atrocities of the worst kind. And what explains this? I don't know. I really don't know what explains this. But that's probably one of the reasons why people don't watch Bollywood movies anymore. And Bollywood is now, it's dying a very slow, gradual death, very slow, because people are tired of this. They keep on promoting and supporting our enemies. I mean, if you have a Pakistani singer or Pakistani actor come and play a role in a movie, they will earn money from us, from our viewers, and they will take that money to Pakistan. Okay, and maybe they're not supporting terrorism, but they will pay tax to the Pakistan government, and the tax money is used for supporting terrorism. So why should our people support Pakistani terrorism? I don't get it. So I think that's one of the primary reasons, one of the major reasons why people
Maybe
don't
that's
like
why
Bollywood anymore.
maybe that's why Kantara and Triple R movies are very famous in India, as they show our culture in very good light.
Yeah, maybe, but I think now people are getting wiser, and that's why Bollywood is no longer the force it used to be. So yeah. Anyway, good question, sir. Thank you so much. Nice meeting you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Let's go to Mr. Tushar Singh. Hello, sir.
I'm audible, sir. Hello.
Yes, you're audible.
Okay, so a big fan. First of all,
thank you, sir.
Second, I just want to ask, given U.S. accusations against Chinese AI firms like DeepSeek, they are accusing of them using training their models using OpenAI responses. Okay, and also they are like proposing the Stargate AI infra project, like $500 billion project, and they want to maintain the AI dominance by stifling the competition. Okay, can they actually ban an open source model like DeepSeek?
I think it's impossible to ban something that's open source. But the
Uh,
point you're making is very interesting. See, the let's talk about Chat GPT. Okay, that's the major foundational model that we have in the market right now. So Chat GPT, how did it train its algorithms? How did it? What they did was they scraped the internet of all possible data, including copyrighted data. They must have scanned, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of books, copyrighted books, and trained their model on that data and all kinds of copyrighted content on the internet, scraping it off the internet and training their model on it. And that's how they were able to build the various versions and iterations of ChatGPT. So what they did was, well, it breaks copyright, but it's okay if they do it. It's perfectly fine if they do it. Now, the Chinese, what they've done is that they've taken the Chat GPT responses up allegedly, and they've trained their DeepSeek R1 model on that through a different method called reinforcement learning. Now, so Sam Altman is complaining that the Chinese have done something unethical. Well, what the Americans did was also unethical, which is like breaking copyright and all that. The point is, the Chinese have outdone the Americans by making their model open source, which is great for the rest of the world. For whoever has the resources to build their own foundational models, you just can take the open source and build on top of that, or tweak it if you want. So yeah, they've stolen a huge march on the US, and it's very interesting that they were able to do it with such little money. $5 or $6 million for the training and whatever it cost for the GPUs, 10,000 GPUs they had lying around. So they used that. And the Americans, I mean, they have this project which is worth 500 trillion, was it billion? 500 billion dollars. Yeah, that's a tremendous amount of money. You can make a very good foundational model with such little money, but the Americans, ChatGPT and all, OpenAI, they have been consuming so much money. So there's something definitely wrong with the way the Americans are doing things. And Sam Altman was saying that we need to revise the social contract now, but that won't work now because the Chinese have given this whole thing for free. So yeah, that's the deal. It's about dual standards, rules for you but not for me. That's the kind of approach the Americans have, and now they are feeling threatened, and they want to maintain their monopoly and hegemony, or technological monopoly over the world. So I'm sure they will stop at nothing to once again get ahead of China. But it is not possible to ban an open source model. It's simply not possible to do that, because open source, anybody can download it and then use it for, it's like downloading movies through torrents or whatever it is illegal, but there's nothing you can do about it. It will always pop up on the internet. So that's the kind of thing it is. So they will not succeed in banning OpenAI's models. Not possible, right?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for your question. Okay, let us take one last question for today. We have gone way past 2 hours, and I will take it from Mr. Vikramaditya Rathore. Hello, sir.
It's a great pleasure, sir. Finally
Thank you.
interacting with you. So my question was like recently, like we have heard Trump has stopped like aid to Pakistan and like Bangladesh. How long can you think this puppet regime will be able to last? And also there have been like pressure from like the Arakan army on some border near the Chittagong region. So like, because according to me, it feels like they won't be able to last this 4 years of Trump's administration. So how do you see this impact of this aid, or they will continue to receive funds from other sources like wages back
Okay,
and
great question.
sources?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the Americans have stopped aid to all countries except for Egypt and Israel. So it's not like they have only targeted Bangladesh. I think a lot of Indian commentators are trying to, misportray what's happened. Trump has stopped foreign aid to everybody except for 2 countries, and this includes stopping of foreign aid to Bangladesh and whoever else. But look, the fact that Bangladesh has a puppet regime that is a puppet of the US, it's going to benefit the Trump regime as well. So I don't see any reason for them to stop funding them through covert means. And I don't think that the Mohammed Yunus government will fall anytime soon. There is all kinds of stuff happening in Burma. It's out of control, the situation there. There is the Arakan army and so many other ethnic groups fighting over there for small pieces of territory. And one hears rumors that the Arakan army is encroaching upon Bangladeshi territory from time to time. I'm not sure how true those rumors are and how well founded they are. Without having our reporters and foot and boots on the ground, we don't really know. We have to rely on second-hand information and claims. So I don't know about that. But I would be very surprised if the Trump government completely withdraws support to the Mohammed Yunus regime. I mean, the American empire superpower is built on creating these client states, vassal states. And once you have that, you don't give it up. Why would you give it up? So I don't see Trump withdrawing support from Mohammed Yunus. He may say things verbally, but I think the support will continue through covert means or other means. I think it will continue. All right?
Enough. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, with that, I am at the end of today's live stream. Unfortunately, I've got so many other people waiting in the wings. I am sorry I won't be able to take your questions. I have to end it here. So I apologize to those of you who could not be on the screen and ask me questions today. But let's see. Maybe we can do this again in the future. All right. So thank you so much to all of you who asked me questions. Thank you so much to all the viewers for watching. And I will see you next week in next week's live stream. Until then, take care. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.